Meanwhile, nature has been busy. On my Birdhide here, we think it's a woodpecker, it probably is. And when I went inside the Birdhide to inspect, I was absolutely dumbfounded. I thought somebody had stuffed a towel in a hole on the inside, but it turned out to be a hornet's nest. I mean, what an amazing marvel of nature. So this is really quite a challenge, because I'm here down by my little bit of riverland. The river floods, and anybody who's followed my series on building the Birdhide will remember me wading up to my chest along the lane one November. But this is January, and I picked the weather perfectly. In fact, I picked the time of day perfectly. I arrived down here about 10 o'clock. It's now about 11 o'clock. I brought down my first aid woodworking kit, some spare wood. The one thing I did forget to bring was some insulating quilt, but I may have enough on the inside of the Birdhide to do a transplant. But it's quite exciting, really, to see, because the whole reason that I have this fantastic opportunity of this riverland, a little bit of river that flows straight into the Atlantic, so salmon come up the river. The whole point is to be engaging with nature. I have to respect the other creatures on this planet, including woodpeckers. He's probably said, what's this? This is on my territory. Here's a nice tasty meal. However, enough of me waffling on. I must get to work while the sunlight and the warmth remains, and do a patch-up job and think about how I'm going to deter the woodpecker and indeed hornets from revisiting. Well, the gods have been on my side. It's actually getting really quite warm. You work up a body heat when you start working, but I'm going to take my ski jacket off, the ski jacket that I wore up in the Arctic Circle at minus 36. I don't know how warm it is, but it must be round about 4 or 5 degrees. Well, so much for the weather forecast. It's looking very threatening, so I better get a move on. This really is a microcosm of, the greater wildlife picture, and I'm very fortunate to own this tiny parcel of riverland. It's curious, really, because I come from a Scottish landowning background. My mother's side owned country estates with a loch and farms and woodland, etc., but I've never really I certainly haven't inherited anything, so better late than never. But this is real wildlife. I mean, it gets totally overgrown, it gets flooded. You just don't stand a chance against the elements. I forget what it's called. It looks very beautiful, the flower. I'll do a caption, but it's a real. It kills everything else on sight, and it just shows you how both beautiful and cruel nature really is. I've never watched any of David Attenborough's stuff. I think I was a bit put off when I saw him cozying up to those apes. What a clever guy. But obviously people like him have explored the very minutiae of this planet, the depths of the oceans. And here we are. This is a bit of English countryside. The most I'll do, apart from building the Birdhide, which is on stilts, obviously, because it floods. It floods increasingly, of course, with climate change. But the only other thing I'll probably do is build a kind of bench here that will withstand the flooding. But I've come down here to do the repair, and I've done it successfully within a couple of hours. It was trying to rain, but it seems to be holding up. And it's great to breathe the fresh air. And so I really must come down here more often. This is the fence I built 2 or 3 years ago. First time I've seen it for a couple of years. Fairly basic fence. Work fascinates me. I could watch it for hours. This is my friend Mark, who lives locally, and he suggested moving some of the silt back to try and keep the level, because of course when the river floods, all this is up to about the 3rd rung on the gate.
I would think probably on average 3 times. About 3 times a year.
That it floods?
On average, if you were to take an average over the last 40 years.
Yeah, well, that's not bad really.
You know,
considering that it's coming off Dartmoor and an awful lot of it.
Yeah. But I mean, there's been 2 or 3 years when it hasn't flooded.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I didn't bring a rake with me.
Shall I take over a bit?
I'm happy doing it.
I'm happy doing this.
Let's go.
Well, I need to look as though I'm doing something.
Go on, you do a
Can I
bit.
just borrow a shovel?
You do a bit. I'll go and get some gloves and take that stuff off the gate.